Where were you as OJ drove that glorious white Bronco down the interstate?
And what music albums were you listening to in 1994?
We're going to talk about that and more as we go through, because we got the movies too, as we go through the show. Let's kick it off. I'm Drew.
I'm Tony.
And this is Back for Our Future and Yours, the show that looks back to look ahead. In fact, we look so far ahead. If you haven't seen it, we have an epically powerful, wonderful gambling-based... No, it's not really gambling, although there might be some side bets happening. But if you haven't checked it out, we did a summer 2025 movie preview. But on this show, what we do is we follow along from... We started in 92. We're now in 94. We're going through and we're talking about movies. We're talking about music. We're talking about cultural events. Why? Because this man next to me has a steel trap memory. I remember nothing. We grew up together as best friends. So this is both a coming of age story and a really fun nostalgia trip. That's what we're doing. So today on the show, we got a big show, huge, crazy, insane show. I'm going to let Tony lead it off because there's a sports thing. And if any listeners of the show know anything, we know that my sports ball skills, not as high as Tony's.
So I want to say off by saying last night I got to see Modern English opening up for Soft Cell, opening up for Simple Minds. It doesn't get any more 1980s than that. It was pretty amazing though. It was a lot of fun.
Did Soft Cell just play Tainted Love over and over again?
No, I don't think so. A lot of people would consider maybe a couple of those bands to be kind of one-hit wonder types, especially Modern Soft Cell. But Soft Cell had top five hits in the UK, so they actually do have quite a library. Yeah, I mean they played everything. I mean they played a lot of songs, so it was pretty cool. They did close with that song though, of course.
Well, I mean that's a smart play. You got to keep people around waiting for the song they all might know. But Simple Minds, that's cool though. I mean, I didn't know they were back on tour. That's kind of a fun bit.
Oh, they played everything. Now they had a few more hits besides just Big Breakfast Club. Don't you forget about obviously number one. That's their big song, and everyone was going freaking nuts when they played it. But still, it was a lot of fun. Great show.
I just had this picture of that song comes on because when I was a kid, I didn't know what the Breakfast Club meant, and then I had this picture of you. Don't you? And you're eating a bowl of cereal as they're playing. I don't know why it made me laugh. Anyway, let's. During the concert, people are moving around by you. You're trying not to spill the milk. Just having a Breakfast Club bowl of cereal. All right, so here we are, folks. It's 1994. It's the summer of 94. If you need to get to, a lot happens. If you need to catch up, you got to go back. You really do. That's the point of this show anyway. It's fun to learn about these things. You learn about our lives and maybe a little about your own. But you might have to go back. But there's some major things that happen. And on this particular date, and Tony has this dated, which means he has a very clear memory of what's happening here. Many of us were all glued to the television. And again, this is pre-social media days. So when a big event happened, there was helicopters, there was news media outlets everywhere. And this is the now maybe infamous OJ Simpson Bronco chase. But it's happening during something very specific for Tony. Yeah. So what do we have here?
So as you remember, for people that know the case, OJ Simpson's wife and Ron Goldman get killed on June 12th. And then by June 17th, he's in a Bronco, infamously rolling down the freeway with Al Collins as the driver. And so this is happening during what would be the biggest sporting event, one of the biggest sporting events of my life, which is the 1994 NBA Finals, which is the first time the New York Knicks would make the finals in my lifetime. So, and this was my team. Like this is my very favorite NBA team in my lifetime.
Who's on that roster? Who's on that roster?
It's loaded. I mean, the starters were Patrick Ewing, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, John Starks, Derek Harper, Hubert Davis is on the roster. Yeah, I mean, it
Oh
was my
yeah.
team. That was the starting five, and these were my guys, coached by Pat Riley. Like that's my favorite group, and I've got like all their jerseys, and I mean, I
You have their starting lineups?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It was pretty. I mean, I didn't get them all right then. Like I didn't have them all in 1994 because it was hard to find them in Mobile, Alabama at the time.
Yep.
But I had Ewing and I had Starks. And the thing is, um, the Knicks were just always my team. If you remember, I mean, you never saw me without a Knicks shirt or jersey and the Knicks hat, and I mean, I always usually had the Knicks
Oh
hat
yeah.
on, turn it backwards or whatever, but I always had a Knicks hat, and those are my guys. I mean, so they made the finals in 1994, played the Houston Rockets, and I remember vividly what happened. All of a sudden, Game 5, which the Knicks would end up winning, um, and they lose the series in 7 games, but they do win Game 5 before losing Game 6 and 7. And very close series. Almost every game was tight. And all of a sudden, they break into the middle of the game to bring us OJ Simpson running down the freeway in a white.
Oh my god.
And they did it like a dual screen. Like they kept the game going on the screen. 'Cause, I mean, like how you not gonna tell people what's going on in the NBA Finals? It's not as like you can just switch the coverage to your phone back in 1994. We get that luxury now, but
Right.
back then, you don't get that luxury. Back nowadays, they just would switch it to a different channel. Even
Well,
they might.
we also got to say though, and I'm not being mean to us, but
No.
we also grew up in a time when TVs weren't very big.
Right?
So when they go picture in picture, those players, Patrick Ewing, that's normally like this big on your screen, he's now like this guy because he's
Yeah.
shrunk down for picture in picture action.
I had a decent sized screen in my room at the time though,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
television I had in my room. So that was not, it's not as big as the ones we get now. Of course, the big screen was downstairs. That was where the 50-inch screen was. That
The classic.
the classic projection TV.
Yes.
Out, you got the projection, and yeah, it was great. But that was my dad's television, so I'm not watching the game. I wasn't watching the game down there at the time. I was watching it upstairs on my television. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, some of the TVs that I mean, they were smaller, and nobody had like a massive. That was considered to be a big time luxury to have a big screen TV. Like that was like you were making some decent
Dude,
cash.
we were all floored by it because you'd go in and see this
Oh
thing,
yeah,
and when people understand how big this rig is, now we have 50-inch TVs that are literally just like millimeters more than a piece of paper. But this was, and I think we had to move it once. I think we had to move it for something, and your mom called and we helped her. But like it was heavy, and it had 3 different bulbs, and it was this whole thing. All right, continue with your story. I just wanted to set the preference of that,
well,
just a
plus
joke, but
out, and people thought it was a seat. We'd have
yeah.
people like think they could sit in that. It's the projection. It projects off that window and comes up, and people would be like, "Oh, can I sit in that?" I'm like, "No, you can't sit in there. You're gonna block the screen." They didn't get it, but yeah, it was pretty amazing. But yeah, I mean that was going on, and I mean then we're trying to watch the Knicks, and all of a sudden we got OJ going down, and of course everyone remembers the case. We'll get deeper into the case because the trial actually happens in 1995, and this is
Right.
just OJ going down the freeway in the white Bronco. But I'll never forget where I was because I mean I'm watching Game 5, and I'm completely glued to the NBA Finals at this point. I mean there's nothing bigger. There was nothing bigger. The New York
But
Knicks making finals. There's nothing bigger than that.
plus we're at an age where that didn't really matter that much to us. I mean, I get it from a sports like a hero side of things, OJ, but like uh, it became pop culture, and it wasn't necessarily pop culture.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, OJ. I mean, he was playing in my lifetime, but early
Mhm.
on in my lifetime.
Right.
I mean, I was very young when he was playing, but I at that point he was really recognizable because of the Naked Gun movies that we've talked about. You
Yep.
know, I mean, the gun movies is kind of. I was like, my gosh, like OJ Simpson, like he say it ain't so. Maybe, hopefully, you didn't actually murder your wife.
Right.
And so everyone became very polarized because of this trial. Of course, everyone's going to know what's going to happen later on, but if you don't know anything about the O.J. Simpson case, you weren't alive clearly, and you should
And
take
you
a
probably
take
never
it back because it's pretty
and you
it's pretty.
no, it's huge. And you probably never watched Seinfeld because one of my favorite Seinfeld characters comes from this.
Absolutely. I was going to say that too. I mean, it's a Seinfeld episode. They spoof off this as well. So with Kenny Gaddison, yeah, I mean it's the whole thing. I mean, yeah, it's amazing.
Well, let's jump into the movie side of things because look, there's a movie that comes out that is it's interesting because it's kind of polarizing in the sense of you've had I almost said Deadwood. Listen to me. You've had Tombstone come out,
Right.
which is as we've established it's on my permanent top 10 movie I can watch almost anytime anywhere. Love that movie. And Tombstone's come out. And yet here comes a little more quote allegedly more historically accurate version of that story and more because it's really Wyatt Earp's story. And this is Kevin Costner's version of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's directed by Lawrence Kasdan, and it came out about a week after the infamous Bronco chase, so about the 24th of June.
Yeah.
And I came in at Carmike, um, and I was really interested because I was a big Kevin Costner fan. But Lawrence Kasdan directed, but it's produced by Kevin Costner, and Kevin Costner was a star, of course. But I mean, Tombstone had an amazing cast, as we've gone through that cast of Tombstone. But this not as successful as Tombstone, but and not as well remembered over the years
Yeah.
by no means. But this is an amazing cast as well. I mean, it's Kevin Costner, Dennis Quaid, Gene Hackman, Jeff Fahey, Mark Harmon, Michael Madsen, Catherine O'Hara, Bill Pullman, Isabella Rossellini, Tom Sizemore, Joe Beth Williams, Mara Winningham. I mean, that's pretty good. I know you're laughing because you're like, how do you get Tom Sizemore? That I thought I've always thought the same thing. Michael Madsen, Tom Sizemore on the same set. How do you let that happen?
I just as soon as you said it, I just had this whole unraveling of some of the stories we've told of like the various Michael Madsen, Tom Sizemore bits, and I just can't help but laugh. Um, Here's the thing about that movie. Here's my honest to God's truth. I've rewatched it later on in life, and it's actually really good. It's a really good Western. It's really well made. The cast is good. The acting's great. I will say, and I will venture to say, this is not, there's no empirical evidence on this statement, but I think most people would agree. The cast in Tombstone is incredible,
Mhm.
but I don't hear that many people quoting lines from anyone in Tombstone except Val Kilmer.
Right.
And I would argue to say, although I actually like the cast better in Tombstone for those actors. I mean, Sam Elliott, and I mean, the cast in Wyatt Earp's incredible, but nobody's performance in either one of those movies even touches. It even gets close to how good, in my opinion, Val Kilmer is in Tombstone. He's so memorable. His delivery of lines becomes an iconic way of speaking, right? It becomes like a whole thing. And I think that's the only thing that really hurt Wyatt Earp is that, like, how are you going to top it when you came out that strong? And Dennis Quaid I mean, how do you even get, because Dennis Quaid plays Doc Holliday, and how do you even get close? Is that
Oh,
right? I have that right, don't I?
yeah.
It's been a minute, but I will say this: like, if you haven't rewatched it and you have any interest in those characters, Wyatt Earp is a little more classic because Kasdan's a classical director. It's a little more classic. It's a little less movie. When I say that, it's a little less Hollywood, a little more movie. It's great. It's just you don't quite have the joy of Val Kilmer in it, and I think that's probably what hurt it
And it
personally.
just it didn't perform as well as Tombstone. Like this
Right.
underperformed at the time. It was considered kind of I mean, there's secondary markets to help get it up, but it was like a $63 million movie that made like 58 million at the box office. So
Yep.
it was regarded at the time as an underperformer, and you know, whereas Tombstone made money. at the box
Yep.
office. So that helps. I don't, making being successful at the box office is a big deal. That's why we talk about box office on the show, and one of the reasons we do that is because you can clearly see that if you make money at the box office, you're more recognizable as a classic. It's just the way it is. I mean,
Yep.
otherwise, if you underperform at the box office and you become a movie that people recognize later on, they always call you a cult classic.
Yep.
You're a cult
Yep.
classic. You're not a mainstream hit. You're a cult classic, and that term gets thrown out all the time, and it's always put on movies that underperformed at the box office. Titanic is not known as a cult classic.
Right.
Avatar is known as a cult classic. They're
Right.
classics. They're hits. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's just the way it works.
And it's funny because as we talk through these, the interesting time, the reason that this time period is very fascinating from a filmmaking standpoint is because the Hollywood is adjusting some things. Like VFX is starting to become more prominent, which means filmmakers have a new vision. So what you end up in this time frame, different than any other time frame, is you end up with very serious filmmakers attempting things that have never been done before. So you end up with a lot of classic movies, humongous, huge, classic, great movies. But you also end up with a lot of cult classics that didn't maybe hit at the time, but actually stand the test of time in the sense of like, man, you got to give them credit for doing something different. And that's why this time period is very interesting. Now, that leads into some stuff here. That's going to take us into June 29th. And we got two films that come out that day. One is called I Love Trouble. I don't totally remember that movie. The other one is Little Big League, which could be a catastrophe because there's also a movie called Angels in the Out League, and I don't remember which one's which.
So I Love Trouble was a movie. At the time, Julia Roberts is pretty big. She's really huge in the late '80s to '90s, kind of riding off that Pretty Woman, Steel Magnolias fame, and all the movies she's coming out in are doing pretty well for the most part. She's definitely a bankable star at the box office in a lot of ways, and she's going to make this movie with Nick Nolte starring I Love Trouble. Now, Nick Nolte,
Oh yeah.
for people that don't recognize him now as much, he's kind of become a caricature of himself over the course of some time here now, but back in the late '70s, '80s, into the '90s, he was a very mainstream leading man actor. I mean, he was a star. He was one of the first guys to ever make seven figures. As a paycheck. So I
Right.
mean, he was definitely a bankable guy. And so this is a movie that came out, and he's riding off of like Cape Fear and stuff like that. He's got a lot of big movies that's come out in the early '90s with Prince of Tides and stuff. And this is another movie that big box office. I mean, big budget. And this movie ended up making money, but was noted for being a really troubled production.
Oh, interesting.
These two didn't get along at all. Like they didn't mesh at all. So I know Julia Roberts had a lot of problems with him. He had a lot of problems with her, and that's what it's over the years been kind of noted for. A decent movie, but certainly not as memorable as some of the stuff that you've seen both actors in.
Yeah, I now that you say it, I kind of remember it. Isn't somebody a detective or something in this? Isn't there some kind of
And they're also you know um, they work for like the Chicago Chronicle and stuff like this.
Yeah,
So
that's what it is.
detective
Yeah.
involved also, and there's also journalists involved in that whole philosophy
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's like a romantic action comedy and decent little film. It's not going to be something that you're going to call your favorite movie of all time, but if you like Julia Roberts and you like Nicholas, I won't say Nicholas Cage, Nick Nolte, then that's a film you should definitely watch.
But that brings us to Little Big League. Now I know there's a story there because we talked,
Yes,
we always kind of go over stuff, and I'm sure you'll tell it. So I don't. Do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to take a guess of what I think this movie is? Because I'm going to confuse one of the two.
I always like it when you take guesses at what these movies are
Now, is
because it's
this the
always
movie?
kind of some kind of great memory that I can make fun of you for later.
And oh wait, there's three. You have Angels in the Out League, Little Big League, and Rookie of the Year.
Angels in the Outfield, you're right.
Okay, so is Little Big League a baseball movie first and foremost?
Yes, it is.
I'm just making sure. Is this the movie where the kid has surgery and his arm is like a rubber band and he throws the
Oh,
ball very fast? Okay,
no.
then I have no idea what this movie is.
So that movie came out before. That's Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
That's the Daniel Stern directed movie with.
We already covered it, didn't we?
we did with Thomas Ian Nicholas, who comes, is from American Pie,
Yeah.
and that's the movie I have a poster for that I've been getting signed over the course of years. But the other one, Angels in the Outfield, is so you the confusion is probably Angels in the Outfield comes out in like a month from now,
Okay.
July of '94. We'll get to that one eventually, but this one here, and I don't know, you probably haven't seen it apparently, but this movie here is Little Big League, and it's about Luke Edwards, who he's always going to games with his grandfather owns the Minnesota Twins,
Okay.
and his grandfather is played very well by Jason Robards, and so what ends up happening is his grandfather passes away and entrusts the Minnesota Twins to him.
Oh,
So now
fun.
he is the owner. This kid is now the owner of the Minnesota Twins. And so then he's got to make all these decisions and stuff. And we get a good performance by Timothy Busfield's in this. The late John Ashton is in this. Kevin Dunn's in it. It's a really good movie. It's a very underrated baseball movie. I will say that. I mean, for people that like sports films, it's a really good movie. It didn't do great at the box office. It didn't do nearly as well as the other two movies that you're talking about. And the funny thing about this one is, I actually didn't see it before my entire family. My entire family saw this movie before me, and my mom, my dad, my brother. It's such a rarity that all three of them would watch a
Yeah.
movie before me at the theater. But I was doing stuff. I think. Well, what I was doing was watching the NBA Finals.
Oh my God,
I
it comes
I
back
was
to it.
so engrossed in the New York Knicks trying to win a championship that they went to see this movie before I got to it, and so basically, yeah, they saw the movie, and then I remember having this conversation with my dad and saying to him, going, well, is it anything like Rookie of the Year? He goes, it's different than Rookie of the Year. He goes, Rookie of the Year is a totally different type of movie, and I was like, okay. And this is one of these weird conversations. I mean, I never had those kind of conversations with my dad about movies, where he would actually explain the differences in these movies. Like that never happens, but that would be something I would do to him, not him to me.
Right.
And so it was like a role reversal, and so kind of neat. But at the same time, I did see it at the theater. I did really like it a lot. I'm big into sports movies, as everyone knows, but this one's a good one, and it's done differently. It's not, like I said, it's not about the kid playing or anything like that. It's this kid takes over a team as the owner, and it's got a lot of good performances, and I highly recommend it.
Okay. I may see if my kids want to watch it. I don't remember it, like I said.
It's a good family
That
movie.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like they might get into it. That brings us into this is very fascinating to me because here it is. We're going in July 1st here. This is almost a holiday weekend type scenario. These
Yes,
these and it's interesting the movies that they decide to put out in this window. We get a three-piece here. And it's going to
this
what's
would
that?
never.
Right.
With
Go ahead.
grade, which getting ready to come out, this would never be released again.
Yeah. So it starts with a movie called Baby's Day Out. Now, I don't, no, I have no idea.
So, uh, so here's a movie that I don't think a lot of people realize who's all attached to it. So this movie is actually written by John Hughes.
Wow.
John Hughes wrote it. It's not a directed movie by him because by this point he's pretty much done directing. But this movie does come out. in 1994, and it is written by John Hughes, and it's also produced by John Hughes and Richard Vine. So that group did, and then of course it stars Joe Mantegna, Lara Flynn Boyle, and Joe Pantoliano, and it's about a bait. So it's about these three guys. Yeah, they're like three bumbling photographers who go in and they kidnap this baby, and the baby gets away. Some hijinks through a window, and then all of a sudden the baby's out in the city, and all let the hijinks begin.
Right.
Let the
I
hijinks
remember it
begin.
now. I
Yeah,
remember it.
and
I I I remember it from Suncoast. It was one of the approved movies. I think we watched it one time and were like, this is terrible, and never went back.
and it was like pretty. I mean, it was a decent sized budgeted movie. It's like almost a $50 million movie that made like 30, little over 30 million. So it didn't do particularly great, and they probably wanted to release a couple more Baby Day Out movies, and didn't happen.
They'd be canceled so fast right now for child abuse. It would just be, you know, eh,
I, I'm surprised you didn't get this confused with like Baby Geniuses or something like that, because this
I
this
mean,
would
I
be something. This would You would confuse these movies for sure.
well, I remember this. There's a point in which the baby crawls along an I-beam, if I'm not mistaken.
This Baby does a lot of things in this movie.
Yeah, I remember, and it was so preposterous that I
Yeah.
just couldn't. I couldn't. Even my partially left-handed cigaretted brain couldn't handle some of that stuff.
Well, I mean, the way the baby gets out is he climbs through a window because he sees a pigeon. That's how the baby gets away from the kidnappers, and then the baby's out in the city. You know,
Right,
I mean,
right.
nobody said it was real life here, buddy.
You might say though, Tony, that we weren't blown away.
Oh, this is a good movie though.
Okay, all right. So here's blown away, which is so at this point, I was
You're not.
very
Yeah.
interested in the IRA. Me and
Yes.
Jeff Worley, and
Yeah.
we
Maybe
both we both partly because of his dad. His dad was Jeff Worley's dad was a former OSI agent, which for those that don't know, when you grow up and one of your best friend's dads is formerly a spy, you start to want to ask questions about things that are crazy. And at the time, the IRA was around. So we had the IRA stuff, we had aliens, all these things. So anyway, you and I went to go see this movie, is what you have noted here. Now, I'll be honest with you, I remember the movie. I don't remember us going to see it. No offense, that shouldn't surprise you. I'm glad we saw it together, pal. Um, it's a really good movie. I have not seen this in a long time though, so I can't speak to how I would see it now. But what's the story on this film? Because it was a decent. It's a rivals type movie, right? You have two guys chasing
Yeah.
each other to some extent.
So yeah, Tommy Lee Jones plays part of this. He's part of the like an Irish Republican Army, you know, fighter, and so he's part of that group, and he all of a sudden all these bombs are going off in Boston, and which I mean obviously would portray real life later on.
Yep.
Uh, but Jeff Bridges is the bomb expert who's trying to chase him down and figure out where he's going to attack next. And it's a great movie. It's Lloyd Bridges is also in it, and Forrest Whitaker's in it. And I mean, it's got a great cast. It's a really really great drama thriller. I mean, I would at the time it was one of my favorites that had come out from this genre. And yeah, I mean, it's a high. I mean, I saw it two or three times at the theater. I saw it with my dad as well at the Dollar Theater because he wanted to see a movie, and so him and I saw this. I took it. I was like, man, let's go see Blown Away because that's a great movie. And so we did see this. But yeah, you and I had seen this, and I mean, I love Jeff Bridges,
Oh
and
yeah.
I always felt like this movie was similar in a lot of ways to a movie that he's going to release um, like 5 years later called Arlington Road.
Yep.
Very similar in how these movies feel. They got a lot of drama, definitely thrillers, impactful scenes, and great performances. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones at the time, it's in the '90s. I mean, he's a bankable guy as is Jeff Bridges as well.
If I'm not mistaken, though, isn't Jeff Bridges a little bit like loosey goosey in this, almost as if this is precursor to his Lebowski type character?
A little bit, a little bit. He's got a little bit of that, little bit of that going on with his character. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And it's directed by Stephen Hopkins, who I always felt was very underrated as a director. I mean, he did Predator 2 and Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and Ghost in the Darkness, Lost in Space, Under Suspicion. I always kind of felt like Stephen Hopkins was kind of an underrated director. He kind of did great movies that didn't
yeah.
get a lot, necessarily love as being mainstream, big box office films, but very good films.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk about Arlington Road, that ends up being, we haven't gotten there yet in our conversation. Obviously, that's 5 years or so from now. But when we get into that space, you start to see music video directors make a shift. I think that one's done by Mark Forster, whatever his name is. Directs a
Yeah.
lot of music videos that are very visually. So it's kind of interesting that, again, this is why I love this show, and what we get to talk about is, like, as we go through this, you'll start to see the development of stylized directors starting to emerge. Not auteurs, but stylized directors. And, Steven may have been one of those guys that had that, but he had a very studio style. Like, his stuff was it was well told. It was thoughtful. It was clean. It wasn't overly risky. It just did what it needed to do. So it works, but then down the road, you're going to come up against these, later on, you get these crazy directors that are just hyper stylized, doing all kinds of stuff. And that includes the guy that directed Seven. What's that guy's name?
David Fincher.
Thank you. That includes David Fincher, came from music videos, in case anybody didn't know. Okay.
And this movie did well. I mean, it was made 53 million on a $28 million budget. Pretty solid.
That was only a $28 million show. That's pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do that today.
Now it makes sense when we look at summer movies, and if you go back to the 25 preview, you'll understand, but it makes sense why they're going to drop a comic book sort of inspired film in the summertime, and that's going to be The Shadow. The catch is, I don't think anyone of our generation at the time knew what the hell The Shadow was. So this is an old IP that they attempt to convert into new IP. While I applaud the risk, I don't remember if it pays off very well or not, because it doesn't seem like there was ever any sequels for this.
No, and it was supposed to be. It was, and of course, this is a Russell Mulcahy directed movie starring Alec Baldwin and Penelope Ann Miller, and it's got Tim Curry and Peter Boyle, Ian McKellen. It's a really good cast. And this was supposed to be a movie that was going to launch a franchise, maybe make a few, more movies. And they had toys for it. They had
Yep.
all the stuff for it, so it was expected to do pretty well. And they did put $40 million of budget into it, and it made about 50 million, which is not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. But and with secondary markets, more than made its money back. But at the same time, didn't make the kind of money that you would need to see to launch sequels and 2 and 3 and 4 and however many more they wanted to go and do. So
So
that's unfortunate.
So interesting thing on that, I just finished watching this documentary called Wick is Pain, which is the story of the John Wick movies. And the reason it's relevant is because, they set out to make John Wick, and they had like a $20 million budget. It might have been 12. It was not a lot of money, whatever it was. The first John Wick was a very low cost movie. So much so that movie, although we all know it as a huge franchise, that movie, no one wanted to pick it up. They made the movie and nobody wanted to pick it up. And then some other movie dropped out in October, and they said, hey, let's premiere it at Fantastic Fest and just see what happens. So then it gets great reviews at Fantastic Fest and blows up. But the reason where this ties into the trilogy and sort of the franchise ideas, they make a second John Wick, and it's still not a franchise, even though that movie just crushes. John Wick 2 blows up in the box office and does well. They're not really a franchise till that third movie, believe it or not. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times when a movie comes out, if they spent, in this case, they spent $40 million to make The Shadow, it brings back 50, let's say it brings back 60 with total domestic, right? It brings back 6. That means the next movie they make has to be made for potentially 50 or 60 million. So they haven't even gotten the money to make the next movie. So they'll pause on doing a franchise. Normally you've got to see a franchise be a movie that is either a high budget and performs on a high budget level, or is low budget that breaks through, kind of like the John Wick thing. And I thought it was really interesting hearing these producers on the John Wick side of it say, like, hey, look, this didn't even become a franchise till the third movie, because they were never sure. Because the first one was such a fluke that the second one was the first time they're like, oh, maybe we can make money plus. And it's not until the third one that they go, oh, this is a big franchise. Now let's put out the Ballerina, let's put out John Wick 4, let's put out John Wick 5, and everything else in between.
So that would be for that franchise because that
Yeah.
one has been successful. There's another way to go about it, and you have a $40 million movie that maybe makes middling to decent money, and maybe it makes 65, 70 million somewhere in there. And then a lot of times, what might happen is they bring the budget back a little
Yeah.
bit. Now they might have to change the cast a little bit or
Yeah.
something of that nature, and maybe go even lower budget, which means that sometimes the next movie may not be in theaters. The next movie might have been released to DVD or VHS, and so that happens as well. So we've seen that. We see it go the other way as well, which is the budgets go lower, much lower, and then those things don't become theatrical; they become straight to video. So it happens both ways, and sometimes you get the movies like you said that you have to make a certain amount, and then you become a franchise, and that's clearly what happened with John Wick, and but there's been other ones that have just and there's a whole bunch of franchises that have done that have spawned huge amounts of sequels, which we've talked about many of them, so Sniper and
Yeah.
Nemesis, some of
Yeah.
these other that have just like you never really got to watch their sequels in theaters because they weren't there, but still exist. They're still around. Um, and that didn't happen with this one at all. And again, you're not taking a very known Marvel or DC property. I mean, The Shadow was a Street and Smith publication.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like a lot of people didn't know what The Shadow was. I saw this movie in St. So Richard, who we've talked about on the show on quite a few occasions, one of my best buds, him and I, he made a couple trips to St. Louis with my family at different times, and this is one of them. In 1994, him and I would go to St. Louis with my family, and we drive up there, and him and I saw The Shadow in St. Louis, and I liked it. I thought The Shadow was decent movie, very very good. I didn't necessarily think they had to make two or three other ones, but yeah, it was a solid movie. I think he at the time he liked it as well. I don't know how he feels about it in 2025, but at the time he enjoyed it, and it was a fun time because I mean there was a lot of stuff going on. We were up in St. Louis. We had the OJ Simpson debacle happening. The New York Knicks had just lost the finals, and I was devastated. And I remember not being happy necessarily right away on this trip, and also um, soccer. The 1994 World Cup is going on at the time that we're in St. Louis, so we're watching lots of soccer because we're both big fans, and so it was a lot of fun. But one of the movie that we did go see was The Shadow.
Do you feel like the World Cup was on the stage that it is now back then? Because it seems like it wasn't until somewhere in the thousands that the World Cup at least entered the sphere of where I heard more people talking about it that weren't just sports fanatics.
I mean, I think that there's been more um, media coverage dedicated to it, and of course now with social media, everyone can talk more about it. So I think that you're right in the sense that you hear more about it because we have allowed ourselves to be we can have communication with people all over
Yeah.
the world. So I think that has helped. But at the same time, though, I mean, I back in the 1994, I mean, this was a huge event. Like we were watching it. It was a big deal, and I mean, yeah, I mean, it's. I think more people have gotten into soccer since then, of course, but not as many necessarily in America as it probably should be. But still, I mean, MLS has brought it around too a little bit, right? There's more MLS teams than there was. Ever since MLS was not a thing.
Yeah.
But so it's huge now because it's a little bit bigger in the United States, and there's leagues that have grown it. And just like St. Louis, we've had an MLS team here now since 2023.
Yeah.
So soccer was always big in the city, but at the same time, it's gotten bigger because now there's a big, huge venue downtown that houses just soccer. You know, I mean, and it's a big stadium downtown, and it's just there for the MLS team. So that's
Yeah,
a
I
big.
mean, and you see that even in Atlanta. It was just always weird. Like growing up down here, I often heard a lot of people in the South would just dog on soccer because it wasn't football. They're like, soccer's not a real sport. I've heard that exact statement out of people's
Oh,
mouths,
sure. A lot of people feel that way.
and it's mind blowing to me. I would love any of them. I'll challenge any of those fat turd heads to get out there and you run for 90 minutes. Just run. I just want to see
Oh,
you run for. Take any linebacker and have them run for 90 minutes. See what
yeah.
happens.
Soccer
It's
was the
still.
first sport I played. I mean, that was my first sport. Like that was the first organized sport that I played, even before baseball and basketball and football and all the other sports. I did eventually play wrestling and all that. But I mean, soccer was the first sport I ever played as a kid, and it's not easy. It's a tough sport, man. It's like you got to be physically fit to be out there playing that sport. And I mean, when I was a kid, I had no problems playing it, and probably wouldn't do it now in my mid to early 30s. But yeah, still.
I was playing soccer this time in school in this era. I started playing soccer and they put me at halfback. And
Ugh.
so here, yeah, they're like, "Hey, you're the chubby kid. Put him at halfback so that he runs the entire time." It's not like I'm a sweeper or a stopper that gets a little bit of a break. No, sir. I'm running
Right.
up and down that field. My God. Well, unfortunately for me, it wasn't because of that, but that is where I did from running that much in soccer. I did learn that I have Osgood slaughter in my knee, which I
All
mean, it's
right.
okay. I can still do a lot of stuff, but like long-term running does not necessarily help somebody that has that. And it's just calloused bone. But when I was a kid, it hurt. So after a while, like I kept playing because I'm not going to be that big of a wiener, but it did not become a lifelong sport for me. It did
Yeah.
not last.
Probably like they're probably let's put the chubby kid in a spot where he has to run all the time because that's good exercise. Maybe
I'm
that's the
sure.
maybe that's the logic. I don't know.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, I could kick pretty well. So they're banking on 1 out of 32 misses. I would get one that might get to a pass. Who knows? So it is 94. Music is a big part of our show, a big part of our lives. There's one of the things that we've gotten some feedback on is people like hearing some of that stuff. So did you want to go over? You said you have a list here
Yeah, I don't
for,
think you realize how many great albums got released in this like weird time frame of May and June of 1994. But I mean, I'm not going to go through. I'll go through some of the iconic ones and some of the ones that were bigger to us as
yeah, yeah.
well. 'Cause a lot of the alternative stuff like that. Kenny G releases an album in this time
Oh,
frame too. I'm
now
not time on it. You know what I mean?
I am. I got stuck listening to that shite by my mom and my aunt, dude. It was the Beaches soundtrack and Kenny G. Those two albums were played so much in my house. And Michael Bolton. When does that knuckle turd drop some music? Is it somewhere
Yeah,
in this window?
they all do.
Oh
They all.
Lord. Oh Lord. Okay, Kenny G. We're done with that guy and his. I'd rather listen to Zamfir and his pan flute.
I think your mom liked that too, didn't she?
Yes, she likes flutes. She's she's a flautist.
so, so right at the top of May, like you get Outkast releases their debut album,
Game
which is
changer.
pretty huge.
Yeah.
There's a little album, maybe you heard of it. It went 8 times platinum, by the way. This next album went 8 times platinum. And I don't care how you feel about this band now.
Oh no.
Okay. I don't care what you think you thought about them then. Everybody listen to this album. I don't want to hear anybody say there's a good album. This next one, it's not as cheesy as you think it is. You think it's gonna be something really cheesy. It's not. It's a pretty
Okay.
big Throwing Copper by the band Live.
Oh, they can burn in hell. I hate them.
It's
I can't
still a
stand.
album.
No, listen. Let me tell you. You
Do
can ask
not
my
take
two
it.
daughters. Listen, when we're listening in the car in Sirius XM, I have the presets where we swap through all the channels, and one of the ones that we land on often is that No, even back then I hated them. When it lands on that alternative channel and it shows anything by, they will be like, Daddy, live's on, and I turn it. They know to protect me. My children protect me from Ed's horrific voice. That guy's a pile of garbage. I'm
In
done.
2025, that's happening. In 2024, that was happening. But in 1994, you were listening to this album.
There's no way. Does this have lightning crashes on it?
You didn't. Lightning Crashes played itself out. There's no doubt about that. But there were other great. There had a lot of great songs on that album. I mean, Lightning Crashes was definitely the song that got played a ton, and everyone's like, "Oh, like enough." It's very melodic, and it's just okay, enough. We wanted to hear upbeat, more stuff, it's upbeat, harder stuff. But that's a good album. I actually own that one, so I had that one on. I had it on cassette though at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
a tough pill for me to swallow, pal. That's a tough
It's
one.
still an album though.
Oh, I can't. I don't know. I can't get in with you on it.
I mean, it doesn't. You don't have to like it. It still went 8 times platinum. So I mean, it's a pretty big. That's a pretty big
That's
record, pal.
It
And
sounds like 8 million people with a taste problem.
and this is okay. And don't forget, it went 7 times platinum up in Canada too.
Oh God, that's 15 million people that are. That's the problem with the world.
Uh, so anyway, this is at a time frame when doing that. By the way, going 8 times platinum meant something
Yeah.
because that doesn't mean anything now.
No.
When you go platinum now with Beyonce's country album and all this other garbage, it doesn't mean anything because you just these are people just clicking things on a phone.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You used to have to get up, drive yourself to a shop, and buy the record,
Yeah.
okay, or the CD, or the cassette, or whatever medium you wanted to buy it on. But that's what you had to do, and that meant something. Like if you really wanted it, and you were willing to have your parents drive you to the store, or you drove yourself to the store with your friends, that that meant this album and this music really did mean something to you. Now
Yeah.
days people just click stuff and they're like, "Oh, this song has gotten 24 million clicks. Who cares?"
Yeah.
Some people just click. I sometimes I click songs just to hear them for one time. It's
Yeah.
not that big a deal.
Right.
And but back in the day, going 8 times platinum was huge. I mean, so you can say everyone had a taste problem. That's fine. But you were one of them, pal. You
No,
were
I don't know
one.
if I owned this. I don't know if I owned it. I don't know if I did.
You did own. I don't think you did own this. Actually, I know your collection pretty well back in the day, and I don't think you owned it. But you listened to it. You liked the song "I Alone." You're a liar. You're lying to me right now.
No, that's fair. I might have liked that song. You might be right.
I know.
That one might have
Like,
been okay.
Lightning Crashes was way too mellow for you at that time. 1994, you were not listening to songs like Lightning Crashes at all.
2025, I'm not listening to songs like Lightning Crashes.
That's because you heard it 600 million times back in 1994. It was played all the time. I mean that's fair enough. Like that song got overplayed, no
Oh,
doubt about it. They by the way, for anyone who really wants to go, Live and Collective Soul are touring this summer
that's fine.
at a venue near you. So check it
And
out
if
if you.
and if you before you go, if you want to make sure the reasons why I don't like Ed, whatever his name is, Sheeran, that's not it, but Ed, whatever his name is, Kowalski, go look up what he did to his bandmates.
Let's say all these people are. I did not say all these people are great people by any stretch of the. There's a lot of bad people in music. We think we've established that.
For
All
sure.
right, so let's get back to this list. So you got the album Diary by Sunny Day Real Estate comes out in
Oh
19.
my God, is it gold?
Good album.
Good album.
Experimental Jet Set Trash and No Star by Sonic Youth.
Dude, I have goosebumps. That record, real quick, I
Yeah,
didn't give a I know for a fact I told you I didn't like Sonic Youth back then. I know for a
right.
fact. I
Like
can't
that.
hide behind that. I did not even get into Sonic Youth until listener of this show ENIAC 999, aka Jim Roberson, and his wacky ass music taste sat there and in college turned me on to them. And once I understood them, I didn't get into all his crap like the boredoms, but Sonic Youth, he was really big into them, and he was an art school guy at the time before I ruined his life. He, or med school. I'm sorry, he's med school. He was he's the one that got me, and that record is so good. It is, to me, it's a classic punk album. It is absolute gold.
That's great. Sonic Youth might have been the most mainstream band he listened to.
Oh, 100%.
I wouldn't even necessarily say they were mainstream.
100%.
So G Love and Special Sauce.
Oh yeah.
The album G Love and Special Sauce. That's a
Yep.
huge album. Now listen to this one. Now I know you like this album. We all like this album. Don't you lie to me.
I don't even know what it is.
Don't you lie to me on this next one. Don't you lie to me. I know better.
No, I feel like I'm
I
getting
know
teed up.
I know better. Weezer releases the Blue Album.
That's the greatest album of all time.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Hands down, hands down. I will defend it till I'm dead that that is the greatest first album of any band that's ever existed of all time.
Pretty amazing.
It is so amazing and so well made and so well produced. The greatest part to me is when Lightning Crash or when Live is on, my kids are like, "Dad, Live is on, change it. Look it out for me." When they see Weezer, doesn't matter what era, they're like, "Hey Dad, Weezer's on." My children get to enjoy, quote, as they put it, which is going to hurt you when I say this. They get to listen to classic rock.
Well, it is what it is. Yeah.
But they and they will sing the Sweater Song, and little Sterling in the back seat will do the Gone bye bye, and you'll just hear bye in the very back seat. She'll just do the little bye part in the back seat for the Sweater Song. It is unbelievable, dude. It is the greatest thing. So
No.
not only did I love the Blue Album when it came out, but now it's become like my dad rock album of the year. Like my kids love it. Greatest record ever.
Teenager of the Year by Frank Black.
Hey, that's so again, you got me into Frank Black later. Turns out that dude is genius. Didn't know that.
Seal and David Byrne both release albums. Stevie Nicks, and then
Yep.
here's an album right here. This is probably one of the biggest albums of my life, and not being facetious. This is really a huge album for me. Dulcinea by Toad the Wet Sprocket
Oh yeah.
gets released in May of 1994.
Yep.
Without question, one of the best albums I've ever heard from
Yep.
start to finish. Started on track one, and I'll listen the whole way because the album is just absolutely sensational from start to finish. That went platinum as well, but I mean that album is marvelous. It really is.
So that record's incredible, and I think I've told you this before, but I'll say it on the show. So when Toad the Wet Sprocket is on, my kids know certain old songs with friends, meaning like when they see Smashing Pumpkins, they know that that's Mr. Pickles, Jim Needle. When they see Toad the Wet Sprocket, they know it's Tony. Well, I've had a rule ever since I've known you. I think I've told you this. If I haven't, you get to learn it now. I will not skip or turn off a Toad the Wet Sprocket song if it lands on my radar. I have to finish it. Doesn't matter where it is, beginning, middle, or end. I always listen to it in honor of you.
Oh,
Always
I
have.
love it.
And I've done that for 40 years. How old, whatever it is. Not really. But I've done that for at least 20 years, 30 years. 30 years I've been doing that same thing. So,
You get Nothing But Love by Heavy D and the Boys. R.I.P. Heavy D.
yep.
Now this next album, I know we all like this album, and your cousin was the very first one to own it. I know that for a fact.
Oh,
Wade to own it. You can't see it because you've kind of changed up your configuration back there. But if you slowly pan around, I know this is a Beastie Boys thing behind you,
yeah.
behind your head. And Ill Communication comes out at the end of
Oh my
May.
God.
That's a massive album.
I would say that's the Beastie Boys' greatest record of all time.
Definitely up there for sure. I mean, it's definitely there. There are a lot of good albums.
The track listing on that album, at least to me, has got the most. I mean, look, people like Brass Monkey and they like Fight for Your Right and all that stuff, but most people can't name a lot of songs off of Paul's Boutique. But a lot of people in our generation can name a lot of songs off of, well, not that, but off of Ill Communication.
It's a
That
huge
also,
album. Yeah, I mean, your Wade was the first one to buy that record, even though we
he
all
was.
liked it,
Yep.
because all we weren't all like rich and stuff. We didn't buy every album that came out. A lot of us would buy an album and we'd all listen to it.
Yep.
So, Wade was the first one to buy that record because we were buying other stuff. Like I just bought Toad the Wet Sprocket and stuff like so I bought some of these other albums, and so he bought that one, and we just burned copies and stuff like
Yep.
that. So we ripped
Well,
cassettes. So,
to put in perspective for most people, obviously the most known song off that record, I would argue, is Sabotage, which
which I just heard yesterday, by the way.
my kids know that song. The crazy thing to me is that song. Here's why that album is so crazy to me. You listen to that record and it sounds like it was recorded yesterday. It doesn't
Yeah,
sound dated at all,
no,
in any way,
at
shape, or
all.
form.
I agree.
It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
It's. I mean, Beastie Boys are. I mean, they have a lot of great music. That album is. I mean, it just kind of depends on what you prefer by them because they have different types of music,
Yep.
and the album. And so, like you said, they have like rock anthems, and then they have it's like, but yeah, I always love that album too because it's 1984, and even when you listen to Ill Communication, a lot of the lyrics involve the New York Knicks.
Yep.
And it was
Yep.
like they talk about all the players, they talk about
Yep.
John Starr, talk about all these guys, right? Because I mean they're New York guys, so they're huge Knick fans, and so as a Knick fan, like that album was really big for me. It was like, man, these guys are from New York, and I had lived in New Jersey, New York area, and stuff like that, and I lived in New Jersey and then New York area in the '80s, you know, when Beastie Boys were first breaking out.
Yep.
And they just released that out, their that big first album. So it was like, I remember them breaking out, being in that area, and all of a sudden here's this band, it's like wow. And then they released this album, and they're talking about the New York Knicks, and it was just very influential to me. So I love that. I love that album too. I agree with you 100%. Then we have some other really good albums. Now, here's another really good one, and I know you liked this album too. It's the second album from Stone Temple Pilots, Purple.
Yep. Yep. Sure did.
That's a
That was another big Wade. Wade was really big into STP. I mean,
yeah.
I liked
And
him too, but that's one of his bands.
when I went to go see them live with Cheap Trick, I have a CD signed by the entire band. That CD, that specific CD, that's their second CD, Purple, signed by the entire band because I went to that tour, and Scott Weiland's on it. It's like signed by that entire
I was about to ask you if it
yeah,
even included Scott. Wow.
just four of them. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, they have the cover signed by all those guys, and it's pretty cool because it's all like very symmetrical, like two signed on top and two signed on the bottom. Really cool piece that I value quite a bit, especially since we've lost Scott since then.
Isn't that, if I remember correctly from our Crow conversation, isn't that the song that they were hesitant to put on the Crow soundtrack because they didn't think it was going to pop the way it did? And
Yeah,
obviously, this album blows the hell up.
absolutely. It's on
Yeah.
both. It's on records. We had talked about the Crow, and then I had mentioned that this record would be coming out, like a month later, and they put that song on both albums. That Big Empty song, yeah, it was
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah. Big
huge. It's
song.
pretty melodic in a lot of ways. It's different than some of the other songs, but man, it's a hit for sure. Regulate by Warren G.
Good
That
God.
comes
So the
huge album.
president of my company, I'm recording this in my office. So if I did that, that bish, I didn't say a bad word, she could kick in this door and rap every single lyric to that, probably that entire album, but specifically that song. Like she knows every word, and I've seen it, and but she, I mean, she'll slump on some words, obviously, but like she's not like the dude in the beginning of Office Space. She will sing it loud and proud. She ain't got no shame.
Suicidal for Life by Suicidal Tendencies.
Classic.
Here, second album by Spin Doctors, which wasn't as nearly as big as the first album, but Turn It Upside Down by Spin Doctors. Arrested Development releases their second album. Here's one, June 21st. Here's an album I know you like. Can't 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 tell me you don't like this album. Betty by Helmet.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the greatest records of all time. But
It's amazing.
that's impartial. Hey, look, it just, by the way, just had its they just re-released it for Record Store Day. I've been trying to get my hands on it. They re-released it as a special printout on Record Store Day on vinyl, and I think it has some B-sides, rarities on it. I sent Paige a message about it. I was like, "Hey, dude, congrats on the Betty drop." But you know, the weird part about that record for him is
Up by the way.
what's that?
Hey, can you hook us up by the way? Hey
Yeah, no
Paige,
joke.
Betty drop. Can you hook us up by the way?
I think that one's a bittersweet record for him because that's when a lot of the band starts to shift. Post Betty is when he loses a good chunk of the bandmates and they go a different direction. So
He still likes it though because they toured that in 2024. They've toured that record as being one of the records that they played from start to finish.
oh yeah.
So they have toured that record as one of their iconic record. What it is, I mean, it is an iconic record for them. But yeah, I mean, it's a big one. Um, then we got Bone Thugs and Harmony releasing "Creeping on the Up." Yeah, that's a big album.
Oh yeah.
Also on that day was a tribute album that came out. I owned it and we listened to it a lot. The "Kiss My Ass" Kiss tribute album.
Dude, I just
That
was
was
referencing that the other day. There's some great covers of Kiss songs. Now, you were a Kiss fan, I was not. So my entry into Kiss, the Kiss world, Kiss universe, was through that record because they had like Dinosaur Jr. and some other guys. Just,
Go
but
the Wet
it
Sprocket.
Toad the Wet Sprocket did a song on it. It was a lot of bands that you wouldn't expect to be doing Kiss songs were doing Kiss songs, and it was really cool.
No, it was a great record as well. And I know Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley really actually enjoyed that record. They thought a lot of those songs were really good. Um, Here's one that your cousin also got first, and this is a great album. "Let's Go" by Rancid.
Oh, he was a huge Rancid fan. Oh
Huge
my
Rancid.
God, did that kid love Rancid?
A good record.
It's a great record. It's actually for me like the earlier the Rancid, the closer they are to Op Ivy. So I tend to like that early Rancid more than the later stuff.
And then we got "One Foot in the Grave" by Beck.
Oh, classic, 100%
Good.
classic. That's Loser,
Uh,
right? If I'm not mistaken.
well, that's actually going to be the
That's
that's
the one
actually
before
a different
Mellow
record.
Gold. That's Mellow Gold. Sorry. One Foot in the
Yes.
Grave is pre Odelay or post Odelay?
No, this is pre,
Okay. Okay. So this is the
yeah,
follow up,
because Odelay doesn't come out until 1996. So
which is
this is the follow. This is his follow up to Mellow Gold. Not as big. Not as big. Both of those albums actually, but still. Um, then we have "One Step Ahead of the Spider" by MC 900 Foot Jesus.
dude.
It's a pretty good
That was
record.
now. What's great about that is that was a humongous Alternative Nation video.
It was. It was all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yep.
"Same as It Ever Was" by House of Pain.
Oh, there
It's
you go.
follow up to their biggest stuff, but it was a good record too. And "Seven Year Bitch" puts out Viva Zapata.
So that's fun because 7 Year Bitch was one of those bands that would show up on alternative. No, not alternative. They would show up on 120 Minutes and also Headbangers Ball. So they would have that. They would get that double edge sort of vibe to it, which is always fun. And that look. So one of the things about that is here's a band that's female fronted, driven, all that stuff, doing really different type of music that existed. I mean, you obviously had Bikini Kill before that, and then you've also got L7 out there in the mix. So there was like some female led bands in a time when nobody expected it. They were out there and they were pumping out some jams that people were really into. We've talked about the L7 because that picture we talk about with us and Paige Hamilton has the L7 helmet and the Vomit Spots. Vomit Spots is a local band, but that's a
Yeah,
good lineup. Good list.
No, it is absolutely. So I mean, that's and that, like I said, that's just May and June
Right.
of next. There's a lot of big records in 1994 that come out, but I was really shocked by how many iconic albums come out in a span. I don't think people think about it.
Yeah.
People think about how many iconic albums can come out, boom, 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 right behind each other like that.
So obviously your takeaway on that is your top is obviously Dulcinea by Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for me, and there's gonna be some big albums come out in July, so we'll get to it on the next show. But yeah, Dulcinea to me was just, I mean, I mean, Weezer too, and
Yeah,
Ill Community.
dude.
Those were like my big three. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many of them. I have to build like more of a top five than
I
just
know
say
it's
one.
hard.
Right?
It's hard.
Because like Helmet. I mean, Betty too. Like all those are great records. I mean, and I liked live. I did. Lightning Crashes was never my favorite song, but I did like that album a good bit. But not as much as the ones I just mentioned. Yeah, I mean, Dulcinea by Toad the Wet Sprocket to me is one of the greatest albums that's ever been released. It went platinum as well. Certainly not 8 times platinum, but it did go platinum. But top to bottom, that's one of the best albums, and I would put it up there with. I'd say the same thing about Weezer's debut album. You
Yeah.
could turn that record on and just listen to every song. I don't say that about every album,
No, no,
because
no. I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
yeah, I
Those
mean,
three, I would say, and I'm only going to caveat this. As much as I was a Helmet fan, I will be honest with you. There's a little fatigue that comes with Betty because it's got some really erratically weird songs on it. Because that's when Page was really getting into noisecore. But I will say, if you take Ill Communication, that's a record you can turn on start to finish. Dulcinea is a record you can turn on start to finish, and no doubt Blue Album start to finish. Those three records. If you think about what I just said, how nearly impossible that is to pull off. Those are three records that a 15-year-old kid would literally just not turn off. I would listen to it all the way through because they were
absolutely.
that good of an album.
I would say Helmet's first album, Meantime, is
Oh,
more of the
yeah.
that turn on and listen from start to finish. That's to me is
Crazy
like
part is you got to go way back. That's like technically 91. It comes out in 92, but you got to go way back for that, don't you? Or
no,
is that
absolutely,
90? That might even be 90. I can't
yeah. I mean,
remember, but
it's I mean because there was the big fight, trying to get those guys in just in general,
yeah. Yeah.
just trying to get to those, just trying to get, just trying to get that band signed.
Well, it's because he would hold out because he was doing the whole I'm an artist thing, and good for him.
Right. Yeah. But
Maybe.
meantime, that's 1992. So that
Yeah.
was 92.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, this comes out in 94, 2 years later. And then Born Annoying comes out after that,
Yep.
95.
Yep.
Good
Yeah,
stuff.
it's good choices of good stuff. So if you guys like having the music stuff in, we're going to keep rolling with it because we think it's kind of fun and it adds a little more texture. Music was in a crucial part of our lives back then, still is now, and we want to keep that side of it in there. So if you have your favorite album from that era, don't forget you can hit us up on all of our favorite socials or your favorite socials. Facebook is the place to go. Also, X, formerly known as Twitter. Do we have to keep saying that, or can I just say X now?
You can say X. It's fine.
Okay. X. You can find us over there. Tony, where do they find us on all these various channels, pal?
Well, they can get us on YouTube. Of course, we're there. Back for Our Future podcast, and then you can also get us on Facebook, Back for Our Future podcast, and of course, Back for Our Future at gmail.com. We'll take any questions or comments there, and yeah, that's it. I want to go back. I want to go into this uh, box office just for a second because we are
Yeah.
releasing our. We got our videos that released just exclusively on YouTube every week, and we'll release them on Facebook on our socials as well. But they're not on Spotify or any of the other platforms. But you can listen to our box office results every Monday or Tuesday, depending on when I'm able to drop it. But you can listen to the top 10 of the box office, and I'll make little comments and snide remarks like Karate Kid, Beat Out, Bring Her Back at the box
No, I get
office.
it. I get you. I
That was
get it.
your that was your number one choice for the week.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you. Yeah. Yeah, they're fun. If you haven't had a chance, it's fun to go through it and see it. As I said, it when we did this, we did a little draft, kind of like on our own, but little side bets going. I got some friends that got some side bets on some of these box office things, so that's how you can get the info. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Tony, last word as always. We know what it's going to be, most likely, but maybe you change it up this time.
I love the New York Knicks. Peace.